Good morning, everyone. Welcome, and we want to begin with the swearing in. So, Madam Justice Ginsburg, would you take over? Let's see, you're going to.
It is a pleasure to attend the investiture of an extraordinary man, General Barry R. McCaffrey, as director of a mission vital to the well-being of our country, the Office of National Drug Control Policy. Time and again, at home and in distant lands, General McCaffrey has taught us by his deeds that a great and valorous soldier can also be a grand human. It has been said of General McCaffrey that he thinks with great clarity and says what he thinks. One early example, in 1973, as a young Army captain, he presented a paper to a conference on the future of the Army. In that paper, he proposed opening opportunities to women in the U.S. military so that the nation's armed forces could draw on the large talent and diverse capacities of all of the people. 23 years ago, many in the military thought his proposal outrageous. Today, it is national policy. I am honored to administer the oath to this clear-thinking man of action, a man who sees the fight against drugs as a fight against a dread disease, calling for constant care and relentless measures on many fronts. But before I do so, may I offer a mini history told at prior oath takings, a few lines of explanation about the words General McCaffrey will repeat. An oath or affirmation to support and defend the Constitution is required by Article 6 of our fundamental instrument of government for all office holders, state and federal. The Constitution tells us in Article 2 the precise oath the President is to take, but it does not set out the words for other office holders. Our highly practical first Congress, however, appreciating the urgent need to staff the new government, adopted a law providing for the oath as its very first act. Congress's second act was a measure less inspiring. It was a protective tariff on a long list of imported goods, ranging from molasses to pickled fish. The original oath was sparer than the one now prescribed. It read simply, "I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States." At the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861, the oath was augmented to include a promise to defend the Constitution against its enemies, first domestic, then foreign. In 1868, when the war ended with the Union preserved, the emphasis was changed to place foreign enemies before domestic. The oath I will now administer to General McCaffrey dates from that time. And now, if you would please.
I think you all come here so they can see you.
Okay.
We're going to change positions here. Barry, you come here. Here you're supposed to be here.
No, that's right. Come here, please stand. Okay.
Now, Justice Ginsburg, you're supposed to go around there. I'm trying to do what I was told.
That's why
Stage
you're
managing this, okay?
Okay.
I, Barry R. McCaffrey,
I, Barry R. McCaffrey,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties of the office
discharge the duties of the office
on which I am about to enter.
on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you very much, Justice.
Thank you, Justice Ginsburg. I want to say a special word of welcome to Mrs. Jill McCaffrey and to all of General McCaffrey's family who are here, to Attorney General Reno and Secretary Shalala and our FBI Director, Louis Freeh, to Senator Biden and Congressman Zeliff, and to all the distinguished members of the government and the military who are here. I would like to begin with a simple and heartfelt thank you to General McCaffrey for accepting this call to lead our nation's battle against drugs. Service to our country runs in his family. In fact, we have 3 generations of McCaffrey service and attendance here today, as you saw standing with me. The General's father, Bill McCaffrey, who is here, with his wife, Mary, is a retired lieutenant general who saw combat in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. 2 of his 3 children are pursuing careers in the military. His son, who is also here, drove all night from Fort Bragg, which is a testimony to the fact, General, that the physical training is still adequate to the task. He is an Army captain stationed at Fort Polk in Louisiana. His daughter, Tara, is an Army National Guard nurse. His other daughter, Amy, is a graduate student at Central Washington College. The McCaffrey family is a shining example of what is right with America. We are fortunate to have their service and their presence here today. General McCaffrey has faced down many threats to America's security, from guerrilla warfare in the jungles of Vietnam to the unprecedented ground war in the sands of Desert Storm. Now he faces a more insidious but no less formidable enemy in illegal drugs. Drugs are as much a threat to our security as any outside enemy is today. They are a leading cause of crime and violence. They add literally billions of dollars to health care costs every year. There is a new CDC report that says that drugs are the cause of at least one half of all the new HIV infections in the United States. And drugs are imperiling our nation's most precious resource, our children. As I said in the State of the Union, if we ever expect to reduce crime and violence in our country to the low level that would make it the exception rather than the rule, we have to reduce the drug problem. We know it is a difficult battle. We know that overall drug use and crime are down in every segment of our society except one, our young people. And that makes the battle more difficult and more important. The glamorization of drugs and violence is a big reason for this. That's why I work so hard for the VCHIP and for the television rating system. That's why we need to stop the glorification of drugs in our popular culture. And for those who say we should throw in the towel and just make drugs illegal, I say not on my watch. I don't believe in that. That would be a mistake. Over the last 2 decades, we have made significant progress in this effort. Just in 1979, more than 22 million Americans used illegal drugs. 5 million used cocaine. Today, less than 12 million Americans are regular drug users, and the number of cocaine users has dropped 30% in the past 3 years. But the problem is still too great, and I say again, it is perplexing and troubling as it affects our juvenile population. Drug use among people 18 to 34 is down. Casual drug use among people under 18 is up. That may be why the crime rate is down overall in our country, but random violence among people under 18, our children and our future, is still up. Tomorrow, General McCaffrey and I will have the opportunity to address this along with others in the administration at our National Conference on Youth and Violence. And this is a good way to kick it off with his service. In the last 3 years, we have tried to take many concrete steps to protect our children and their future. We're working to get hardcore drug users off the street, to make sure they can't commit crimes, and to get them into treatment. We're bringing drug prevention to our schools by teaching our children that drugs are wrong, illegal, and dangerous. We've put more police on the street, and that is a major cause of the decline in the crime rate. 2 months ago, I signed a directive requiring drug testing of federal arrestees. We're doing all we can to stop drugs at their source, before they get to our borders. Just yesterday, our U.S. Customs officials began seizing all imports of the sedative Rohypnol, which has been associated of late with date rape. But General McCaffrey and all of us know that we have to do more. We have to do much more. There's no one more capable to lead this effort than Barry McCaffrey. He is America's most highly decorated combat veteran. He earned 2 Distinguished Service Cross Awards for extraordinary valor in Vietnam. He also earned 2 Silver Stars for heroism and 3 Purple Hearts. He served 2 tours in Vietnam where he was severely wounded by enemy gunfire. He led the now famous left hook maneuver that crushed the Iraqi army in Desert Storm. And for the last 2 years, he's been on the front lines of our efforts to stop drugs at their source in his role as Commander-in-Chief of the United States Southern Command based in Panama. As part of our counter-narcotics team, he displayed decisive leadership in strengthening the efforts in Latin America, including forming one of the most successful international coalitions against drugs that has ever existed in that region. In addition to his heroism on the battlefield, General McCaffrey has distinguished himself as a man of ideas, a brilliant man of ideas, especially the one that Justice Ginsburg thought so much of that she mentioned a few moments ago. He has always taken a comprehensive view toward problem solving, and he knows that our efforts in the struggle against drugs will require a combination of treatment, prevention, education, enforcement, and interdiction. Teamwork and coalition building are not just words to him. He has done it. Teamwork and coalitions building literally saved his life and the lives of his soldiers. There is no doubt that he has the talent, the courage, and the vision to take up this fight, but he cannot do it alone. As I said in the State of the Union, he's going to need a larger force than he has ever commanded before. Indeed, a larger force than he and his colleagues who've come from the Pentagon to join him today have ever commanded before. He's going to need every American doing his or her part if we are going to succeed. It means that we have to begin with parents, talking firmly and clearly with their children, with our communities, our houses of worship, our schools, our employers, our national and community groups. The fight against drugs must in the end be a citizens' campaign, because every citizen has a direct stake in the outcome. General, I want you to have the tools you need. For the last 3 years, I have challenged Congress to do its part. In each of those years, Congress has appropriated less than I asked for counter-narcotics efforts in the Department of Defense and other agencies. America must never send its troops into battle without adequate resources to get the job done. That's why today I am directing General McCaffrey to take the first step to make sure that we are adequately armed to fight this battle. As your first act of duty, I direct you to prepare a plan to amend the 1996 fiscal year budget through reallocating $250 million from the Department of Defense budget so that it can be added to our counter-narcotics efforts. I will submit the plan to Congress this month. I'm also directing you to examine the fiscal year 97 budget to determine if a similar reallocation is needed. We have to get after this. We have to get General McCaffrey off to a good start. I believe that he will get our country off to a good start. Our national security, the well-being of our children are at stake. We can create a safer, more drug-free society. We can do this if we work together. As I have said many times in different contexts, When we are divided as a country, we defeat ourselves. But when America is united, we never lose. I believe Barry McCaffrey will help to unite America, and I believe he will help us to win this great and enduring struggle for our character, our soul, and the future of our children. Thank you again, General McCaffrey, for laying down your 4 stars to reach for the stars. We appreciate you. Your country is grateful, and I ask you now to come and say what's on your mind.
Thanks very much. Well, Mr. President, thank you for those enormously moving words. I must tell you bluntly that although, as you know, it was very painful for me to leave the U.S. Army, which I've been part of since age 17, some 36 years ago, I took the first oath of office on the plains at West Point. I am proud to be part of this effort and proud to serve in your administration dealing with these enormous threats to the American people. Now, I also need to tell you that this is probably the best day of my mother's life. You know, you give up trying to impress your wife after a few years. They know only too much about you. But Mother finally knew I was doing okay when a year ago I was decorated by the French government with a high honor, which is a great source of pride to me over in the French embassy here in Washington. And I must admit, though, the ambassador kissed me on both cheeks during that presentation. Well, I think we've now gotten a step up from that. I do thank you, and I will give you every amount of energy and good judgment and cooperation with your other officers of government that I can muster. Justice Ginsburg, thank you. It was a tremendous honor for you to have you participate in the ceremony, officiate, and administer the oath of office. And it adds a note of legitimacy to underscore that we understand that this struggle has to be carried out with absolute respect for the law and an understanding on our own constitutional liberties that make us the great democracy we are. So I thank you for being here. I'd really be remiss if I didn't note the leadership role that Congress has played. The President's already announced that this war has been going on a long time. There's been a lot of creative energy, and certainly Senator Biden, sir, you and your colleagues in the committee, Senator Hatch in particular, played an enormous role in putting together not only the office, which I now am charged with running, but also understanding the dilemma and providing the leadership required. And I thank you for being here in particular. Congressman Zelliff and Congressman Rangel just came by to make a special visit to the White House, which I very much appreciated. The two of you have played an enormously important role, and I look forward to your wisdom and your cooperation in this effort. The President told me there would be no time out for a year from this effort. This is a bipartisan issue, and I look forward to working with cooperation with you. Secretary Attorney General Reno, I thank you for being here, and some of the senior officials of law enforcement of our government, Judge Free, thank you for your presence, and in particular Director Constantine, Administrator Constantine, a tremendous police officer, a man of great integrity and good judgment, and I appreciate your presence here today. Undersecretary of the Army Joe Reeder, a friend, I thank you for participating today also. Let me also, if I may note, that this is going to be not my struggle, but our struggle. The President's told me to work in cooperation with the senior officers of government, and I particularly appreciate Secretary Shalala being here. And from State, Timothy E. Worth, I thank you, sir. Been a great friend and mentor and been a great architect of this international coalition that we've worked on. Your presence means a lot to us. I don't see Undersecretary Walt Slocum, a good friend who's been such an important part of the defense effort, and certainly Admiral Bob Kramick, the absolutely brilliant Commandant of the Coast Guard, who has been the interdiction coordinator and has done a lot of the work in building our current Andean Ridge and Caribbean strategies. I thank you, Bob, for being here today. Let me also thank some of the White House team that put all this together. Leon Panetta, sir, you have pulled together all the assets we needed to get me launched, and I thank you for your support. Mac McClarty has been such a tremendous influence in the Latin American region in general. I thank you for your friendship. Dick Clark, Rahm Emanuel, Tracy Thornton, Elaine K. Mark, Jack Quinn, Kitty Higgins, all of you who have come together to assemble the tools we think we needed to do our job. There's three very important distinguished guests here today. Vic Oboisky, Bob Scully, and Jim Pascoe represent the thousands of police officers and officials across the nation. This whole effort in the drug menace clearly includes absolute support and respect for the law and the police officials who are charged with enforcing it. And so I appreciate your presence today and look forward to working with you. Two final names, if you'll allow me to mention them. John Van Alstyne, Major General in the United States Army, and our Joint Staff, my Chief of Staff during the Gulf War, personal friend, a remarkable human being, Colonel Mick Zase. I thank you both for being here also. And then finally, Janet Chris, and I won't go through the whole team of the Office of National Drug Control Policy, but Janet's come over from the State Department, Mr. President, to act as Chief of Staff and help get us and me organized. I think I don't need to really talk in any length. Let me just underscore. I told the President that the one thing I was sure I could bring to the table in this whole effort was optimism. I think one of the challenges that we all face as Americans or as those of us who are privileged to be officers of government, one of the challenges is to understand that we can deal with this problem. Now, I say that not as an expert on the drug issues, but as a member of the armed forces that watched us go through a decade of agony in the 70s when we were overwhelmed by problems of alcohol abuse and illegal drugs and the effect it had on our health, our discipline, our physical conditioning. It was a nightmare, the violence it engendered. And it took us a better part of 7 years to come to grips with that. The analogy to American society is imperfect. The tools we have in the armed forces are in many cases are clearly inappropriate for our free society. But the beautiful young men and women that we serve with in uniform are the sons and daughters that come from around this country. So I just go into it saying that there's a chance here, it seems to me, to maintain the momentum that many of you here as guests have already established. And I really look forward to being your partner and your servant in this effort. Mr. President, thank you very much for this great honor.